Alrighty, everybody, I'm back. Been gone a while, actually. Took a little bit of a hiatus. Truth is, I don't have a good space to record in my own house. Had a daughter about a year ago. She just turned 1. Anybody that's got kids knows they kind of take over your space. They want to be where you are the older they get. Can't record in the living room anymore. Just because she's usually making noise no matter where she is, even if that's in her own room, and yeah, I don't have any quiet space. So I finally had this space in my house that lived here for 4 years, never used it, so I finally cleaned it out, and here I am, and hopefully I'll be back making videos regularly again, as something I really want to do, and today I think I got a good one. Let's see, I want to talk about the NES Classic. Hopefully you can't hear my neighbor. He's pressure washing his trailer. He's really going at it. I've been waiting, hoping he would finish. I know I can hear him. Hopefully the microphone does not pick up on him, although judging from the feed, it looks like he can. Hopefully that won't be too loud. Okay, so, the NES Classic Edition. Anybody who doesn't know what that is, it's basically just a little tiny system with a bunch of ROMs on it that Nintendo released, I believe in 2016, that came with a controller. Hope you can see it there. You couldn't find it anywhere. I certainly never thought I would have one. It became something that it quickly came and went. But this time around, they just re-released it June 29th of this year, 2018. I believe it was June 29th. I didn't have any trouble finding mine. I hope you didn't have any trouble finding one either. So I want to talk about a few things. First, I want to talk about the NES Classic. This isn't a review, but I just want to talk about it. I want to talk about the SNES Classic, which I have right here. I actually didn't have any trouble finding that one. I want to talk about scalpers, and I want to talk about the power of patience. I keep looking at myself and not the camera. Don't do that. So I, like many others, back in 2016, when Nintendo made and sold all 7 of the NES Classics that they made, I never saw one in a store. Also, like many others, I was able to see that the majority of them that were sold were just being resold online. In fact, right now on Amazon, there's probably hundreds of these things that people are hoping to move. Sometimes people would take pictures of piles of them. You know, you'd see 10 of them in a picture, and they'd be like, "Oh, I got it for sale, $100." So this obviously indicates that the majority of them went to people who, you know, wanted it to own it, play it, you know, not resell it. And he's still pressure washing. So I already said what the big deal with this thing was. It was very nostalgic driven. I didn't think anybody would want it, certainly. I know that sounds stupid saying it now, but I remember when it came out, I was like, I'm just going to go get one. I'd never heard anybody talk about it. I didn't really see. I might have just missed all the news about it, but I didn't hear anything. So I was like, I'm going to go get one the morning that it comes out. I got out of work at 7 a.m. And there were lines everywhere. There was lines at Target. There was lines at GameStop, which GameStop didn't open for another 2.5 hours, and there were already people standing outside. So I just went home. I was like, I remembered the Wii. You know, I worked back at GameStop in 2006, I think it was, when the Wii was still a very heavily sought-after product. And I just remembered GameStop getting maybe 2 or 3 of those if they were lucky. So I didn't want to stand in line and be the first person in line to not get one. So I was like, I'm just going home. There was already probably like a dozen people waiting at Target, which at the time opened in about a half hour. And GameStop probably had about, if memory serves, 4, maybe 5 people. In hindsight, I probably could have gotten one, but what are you going to do? Again, this is not a review. There's already tons and tons and tons of those. I'm just here to talk about this, you know, what I think about, you know, things I mentioned at the beginning. So this thing was sought after by people like myself who grew up with the Nintendo, the NES. You know, I think it was also partially driven, again, to mention the Wii, by the fact that no one could find it. You couldn't find it anywhere, so that just made people want it more. You know, don't know why it really has that effect. It's never really had that effect with me. I did look a few times at Walmart. I would look at Target if I happened to be there. I never saw it anywhere, but I didn't look that hard. Now, I don't doubt that just as with the Wii, this thing became an eventual doorstep. I don't doubt that there are probably many of these things sitting in boxes. They're decorative items, they're set pieces. Some people probably resold them once they found out they were worth a lot of money. I bet you some of them are sitting on shelves, hooked up, no one's using them, just because I feel like the initial excitement, the thrill of finding and getting one, being like, oh my god, I got this, and the enjoyment of hooking it up, that was it. You know, you play it once or twice, and then most people are probably like, eh, you know, because it's not going to change. It's the same 30 games. You know, I feel like it's an uneven selection. There's some good, there's some bad. So I feel like, yeah, again, it's probably just, oh my god, this was from my childhood. Now, some people have bought multiples of these things. I've seen people say things like, oh, I got one that I want to hook up. I've got one that I want to keep in the box. And I'm like, why don't you just buy one? That's kind of lost on me. And then there are those scalpers I mentioned before who have heaps of these things. And it's like, wow, man, you know, I hope you get stuck, you know, with every single one of those and you can't move them, or at very least you break even. But, you know, for all the bashing that scalpers get, I think that there is that old saying, you know, don't hate the player, hate the game. I feel like scalping, I'm not defending them, but they only do it because it works. If a product like the NES Classic came out and someone was like, you know, oh, I better think about buying a lot of these because I could end up stuck with them, I could end up selling them at a loss. You know, I don't want that. But if people are like, man, I could buy all these, and people are going to be dumb enough to pay $20, $30, $40, $50 more than I paid for it, of course somebody's going to buy them in piles. You know, it's not a good comparison, but like if I went to the store and just bought all the graham crackers, you know, and I was like, oh man, I'm going to sell these at like 4 times what I paid for them. And people were like, you know, I'll just go somewhere else. You know, I'd be like, oh, crap. I'd end up with these crackers that I couldn't eat, couldn't sell. They'd most likely go stale and I'd be at a loss. You know, that's all you really have to do. That's all I did to beat the game, is I was just like, I don't need one. You know, I kind of went into it with this mentality of, if I find the NES Classic, great. If I don't find it, it's not a big deal. I just wasn't meant to have one, you know, bringing the whole like fate and destiny thing. I just wasn't meant to get, you know, I wasn't meant to have one. And I also remembered, this is like one thing that I remember from high school, diminishing marginal utility. Like, I knew that the most excitement I was going to get out of the NES Classic before I even found it, I was never going to get more excitement out of it than the moment that I found it. And the first time that I hooked it up, and the first time that I played it. That was going to be the most exciting, immersive, awesome experience I got out of it. Because once you know the menus, once you know the games, once you've got it hooked up, you know what it looks like, you know how big it is in your hand, etc., etc., etc. It's just not going to be that exciting ever again. It's kind of like when you see a movie for the first time, you're like, oh my god, that was a great movie, but then after that you're like, well, I know everything about it now. So anyways, back in 2016, the console came and went. I quickly forgot about it. I would Google it every now and then, you know, and be like, yep, it's still overpriced. Eventually I would luck out and find the SNES Classic in the meantime, which I almost gave into scalping. I'll get into that in a second because it's kind of interesting. But once I found out that Nintendo was going to give the NES Classic another lease on life, I was like, thank God, because you guys screwed that up the first time. You know, I feel like they only made like 4.5 of these things and sold them all not where I live. So I saw the SNES Classic on GameStop.com first. That was where, first place that I saw it, that I could actually add it to my cart, and it wouldn't just take me to an empty cart. We all know about that, you know, when there's like a big rush to get a product on sites like GameStop and Amazon, where it'll just take you to your empty shopping cart, and then eventually it'll just say that the product is unavailable no matter how many times you try to add it. But anyways, I could add it, and it was actually in my cart, but it was bundled with this book. And I think the book was like Playing with Power, or Playing with Superpower, or something like that. And GameStop had this bundle available for like $90 or $100 or something. It was marked up because it came with this book. Now, maybe it was because GameStop's an actual business and not some third-party scalping dink, you know. So GameStop, for the most part, they adhere to the MSRPs, the manufacturer's suggested retail price. You know, or maybe it was just the excitement of being like, man, I could buy this right now. I could finally just buy it. But like, I almost bought it. It just didn't hit me in the same sense as like that of a scalper. You know, I didn't really think of it that way. And then I thought about it for a moment, and I was like, okay, sure, GameStop's giving me more than just the system. But I don't want the book. Like, bundled book or not, it was something that I didn't want that raised the price. I was like, can I just buy the system for less? Can you just keep the book? And then I thought, well, maybe I could just buy the bundle and sell the book. But then I was like, wait a minute, that's probably what a lot of other people are going to try to do. So I passed. I was just like, thanks, but no thanks. And my patience would be rewarded because not long after that, I was sitting at home, and just like with the NES Classic, I would randomly just Google, in my spare time, I'd Google the SNES Classic. And this article popped up. It wasn't even an hour old. I don't remember where it was from. It might have been Kotaku or one of those, Polygon, something like that. And wasn't even an hour old according to Google, and it says GameStop has the SNES Classic Edition in stock right now. And it was like 50-something minutes old, 40 minutes old, I don't know. So I went and checked it out. I was like, they're going to be gone. There's no way. I'm too late. Even under an hour, I was like, I'm too late. But it was there. And I was able to add it to my cart. I slapped my credit card in there and, thrown a few days for shipping, and I came across my SNES Classic. That's how I got mine. So, even though I told my scalper story there, thank you GameStop, that's where I got mine from. I got it from GameStop. So when the NES Classic dropped again on June 29th, long before that, actually, I had already resigned myself to the former criteria. Just to recap, if I get it, I get it. If I don't, I don't. It's not a big deal. I poked around Walmart in the early morning hours, 7, 8 in the morning. Didn't see it, so I figured it's either already gone or they don't have it, or they have it and it's not out. But I didn't want to ask anyone that works there because I know from working in customer service it's really annoying. I remember when the NES Classic came out in 2016, Walmart actually had a sign that says, hey, we're sold out of this. They had it right on their video game case. So I was walking through the electronics section around, I'd say it's a little bit before 9, and I saw one in the case. I must have missed when they put it in there. I don't know how many they had, but I was like, oh my god, I gotta go get somebody. I gotta get this. And there was already somebody over at the counter, and I was like, crap, having my luck, he's freaking buying it. Well, he was already buying 2 of them. I hope that second one wasn't for nefarious purposes. The Nefarious Classic Edition? No, it's terrible. But I hope he was just buying it for a friend, but I guess it doesn't really matter. I'll get into why later. But anyways, I got the last one in the case, lucked out. I hope others have had luck in come across it, as well. So it kind of goes without saying that it feels really good to realize that whole good things come to those who wait. Would it be a mantra, I guess? It also goes without saying that not every instance of being patient is going to pay off. There are things that come and go, limited tickets, limited seats, limited editions, limited this, limited that. If you don't get in on it, it's gone. Like, I remember the Game Boy Micro was one of those things for me. I felt like it was there, it was in stores, it was available. I didn't buy one, and then it was just gone. Nintendo could have just never released any more of these, and it would have effectively phased them out of existence. It got such a small window of life that they basically might as well have not existed at all, because I feel like the people who really wanted one couldn't find one. Which, as I mentioned earlier, I feel like now that's not going to be a problem, because I've been back to this Walmart a few times after buying mine, and I've seen 5 of these in the case, I've seen 3 of them in a case, I've seen 2 in a case. I've been back there a few times, and there's been NES Classics every single time. So either it's the same batch and nobody's looking for them, at least in my area, or it's a different batch each time. Oddly enough, I don't see the SNES Classic anymore in my area right now, but I see the NES Classic pretty much every time I go out to the store, because it's just fun. I just go through electronics and look to see. But it's controllers and controller extension cables that I don't see anymore. So Nintendo might have botched the original release, but at least they made amends for it. I was happy to give them my money. Well, actually, I gave Walmart my money, but I guess you know what I mean. So anyways, that brings me to the end of this video. Let me know what you guys think. Were you able to find an NES Classic? Are you still looking? Did you get one before? Did you buy another one? Are you looking to scalp it? I hope not. But anyways, I welcome comments of any shape, size, form, positive, negative, what have you. Were you able to hear the guy pressure washing? I think he's done. Well, anyways, this is Brock Shake. I'll sign off here, and remember, make sure your patience is longer than your controller cable, and you'll do all right. As long as your patience is longer than your controller cable. I can't even get that in one shot. Anyways, make sure your patience is as long as